Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. You are looking at the 2-hour chart provided by netdania.com. You can click on the link below. This is a short-term chart. You can see it goes back to August, but we have a significant downtrend in place here. And this has been tested or met 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, maybe 4 times, and then we have a rounding off trend line that goes down. So the thing I wanted to point out about this chart is that for the most part on these types of charts, you are going to get a bottom when you have significant volume. Now, this bottom that we put in back on the 25th, 24th of September during the big smackdown, you can see, if you remember my videos, I pointed out that I thought this would be a bottom because of the volume. Normally bottoms are places where you can't trade for any amount of time. Normally they go down and go back up very rapidly, so it's very difficult to buy because the price trades at that price for such a small amount of time that you can't really get in. So that's a signature mark of bottoms in a market, and this one convinced me that it was the bottom. Now I'm starting to have my doubts. So you have to remember, and we're going to get to the viewer comments. I'm doing this video about viewer comments, and so a lot of people have commented about my predictions, and I'm not really making predictions about where the price will go. I'm just speculating about where the price will go, because obviously if I knew the future, I wouldn't be doing this. I would be a multi-billionaire and probably living in luxury. So obviously I don't know the future. I can just speculate about the future just like yourself. So this bottom here is significant in that it was met with a volume spike. Now, the thing that is interesting, and you have to remember, these are contracts, they're monthly contracts, so the volume can shrink and increase based on the monthly, and that's a hard thing to gauge. You just have to accept that as a reality. But you can see, if we look at this volume trend where we get a top or spike, it occurs roughly at about this point here, and you can see that was roughly our top as we began to go down. So significant selling volume appears to have come into the market at this point, and now we're just decreasing until we get this very large spike of selling volume as well. And the main thing to note on this is that we do not have a spike low on this volume. We actually have a drop and then just kind of a weak rally, a weak recovery. So the odds are now that this is going to go lower. This price is going to fall from here. So we're still looking for this type of spike bottom. I don't know where that will be. I can't predict where that's going to happen, but when it does happen, my guess is that you will see a spike bottom like you see here. It may happen at 22, it may happen at 20, it may happen at 26. We don't know, but most likely when this spike bottom occurs, you are going to see tremendous volume, tremendous downside and upside movement, and probably it will be accompanied by the inability to get physical silver. So a lot of people have projected this. It's been discussed by Bix Weir, Ted Butler. A lot of people have talked about how we're going to a point eventually where the paper price heads to zero and the physical price heads to infinity. So that looks like the scenario that's playing out now. We don't know. We just have to wait and see. But based on this, my guesstimate is we still have further downside, and we want to look for a big volume spike drop to find that bottom. So I want to segue into the main story. Tonight is going to be the viewer comments, and I've just selected a few of the viewer comments. I can't reply to all the personal messages I get. I can't reply to all the comments that I get. I simply don't have the time. I'm involved with keeping up my blog and creating videos, and I just don't have the time. It's nothing personal against any person. It's just that I don't have the time to respond to everything. So I've chosen a number of comments that are relevant to things I haven't answered, and I'm going to go through these real quick and try to answer more information on these. So the first comment here is from Linny B888, and this is a faithful viewer and subscriber, and her question is, and these are all from last night's video. So she says, but didn't those federal government workers pay into their pensions? Why does no one ever speak to the fact that the government workers had money taken out of their paychecks by force every paycheck? Where did that money go that was paid into their pension funds for 30 years? Brother John F., question to you. These pensions are not gifts. People paid into them, Linny B. So my answer to that question is the money was stolen by the government. The same people that stole all of the Social Security money are the same people that stole all of the federal pension money. This is the same group of people. It's called the Congress. They've taken all of the money. Now, you might ask, well, where were they supposed to keep this money? Well, you have the Social Security lockbox, and you have all these theories. You could very easily, if you really intended to, lock this money away. You could have taken the federal pensions and you could have invested them in annuities or something else, done strict accounting, and kept that money segregated. As you know, the money from Social Security goes right into the general fund. The money from these pensions goes right in the general fund. If you remember, Obama, when he was under pressure in August, immediately raided the federal pensions. So it's clear these monies are a target. They're not there. They're already stolen. So I'm not placing blame. If you remember, in the last, well, not in the last, but in a number of videos I've done, probably at least 5 videos over the course of the last year, I have pointed out that if you are depending upon the government to come to your rescue, you will be disappointed. I'm not passing judgment about whether the fact that you're a welfare person or an unemployment person or a federal pensioner or expecting Social Security. I don't really care. It's not an issue. The issue is the government is bankrupt. They've already stolen the money. They've already spent the money. The money is gone. It's not a matter of blame. It's just simply gone. So I'm not any more judgmental about federal workers as I am about Social Security payees. It's all gone. They've stolen all the money. And I would say to Lindy B, don't get mad at me. Get mad at the people that stole the money. So next comment. Private sector employees have a right to their pensions plus Social Security. Are you saying federal employees must survive retirement on only their Social Security? And that's Inch High Private. Now, I did some study on this, and actually the federal retirement system was a separate system. I think it was in 1984. You'll have to look it up for yourself. But up until 1984, the federal employees didn't pay any Social Security. They paid strictly into their federal retirement. In 1984, that changed. There was some kind of merger. I'm not really sure how that works, so you can explain that to me. So I'm not passing judgment again, but my guesstimate is that probably Social Security and federal retirements and state retirements, because the Fed's bailing out the states, and municipal retirements because the states are bailing out the munis. So you have the Fed bailing out the state, bailing out the munis, all this stuff. It's all going bust. All of this stuff is going to go bust. So you'll probably see, my best guess is, all of these retirements, federal, Social Security, state, and municipal, will probably all be thrown into one giant pile, and everybody will be getting the same thing. And it's going to be a pittance, so it's going to be something you don't want to see. But that's my guess from what's going to happen on that. I'm not passing judgment. I'm not blaming one group. I'm just explaining that you've been stolen from. Your money is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. It's already gone. So, next comment. Thank you for this. Wow. Seriously, it looks like complete and utter doom coming down the road. And Ron Paul is the only candidate addressing these money matters seriously. He is the adult in the room. They always mention that's missing. He's there, an adult, and Brother John F. has his back with some good analysis. Just mind-blowing, this report. So, yes, I do support Ron Paul. If you go back to my blog entry about the Good Doctor, I believe that Ron Paul is an honest person. Now, you may not think that's important. I think that's very important, because ultimately what we're looking at here with the financial markets, with the stock market, with the commodities markets, with MF Global, with the European markets, we're really looking at a situation of corruption. And the answer to corruption is honesty. And I do believe, regardless of what you think about his views, and I don't agree with Ron Paul about everything. I don't agree about drugs. I have some serious concerns about defunding the mafia that is currently bringing drugs into this country, which is probably connected to the government. I don't know. But I have some concerns about his position on drugs. I have some concerns about other positions he has, and we can agree to disagree. But I will say this, that Ron Paul is an honest person. I've never seen anything. Now, there are some connections to him being connected to anti-Semitic stuff, and that's obviously going to turn away a lot of the conservative Republican side. If you get the chance, you should see videos that Ron Paul has done clarifying his position on Israel. And I think he's made a very good point that, yes, we recognize Israel as an ally, but at the same time, we've given more money to the Arab nations around Israel. We're giving money to everyone on earth. So it's a deep issue, but I think Ron Paul has a defensible position on foreign policy, and that is to bring the troops home. So that's that comment. Brother Jay, where on that chart are military pensions? It must be huge, and I do not begrudge the average soldier his small pay and disability, but I speak of the huge military complex that I would say has risen up over the last 50 years since World War II, with rich pensions going to the most prosperous area of the nation, Washington, D.C., Baltimore suburbs. Military has sucked and is sucking huge dollars from this economy along with government pensions. Know what? This is class warfare, and the elite have already won. Shopping idiot. So, a couple of comments about that comment. First of all, in my opinion, the treatment of American veterans is a national disgrace. So, if you saw my video about the Good Doctor, you saw the Styx video, and in that video you see some of the soldiers that have served their country faithfully. I have nothing against those people. Those people are honest and good people who have followed the call. Regardless of what they believed, they've sacrificed their life for this country. I'm not talking about the manipulators and crooks that send them here and send them there for money. If you want to know my position, you can look up Smedley. I think it's Smedley Butler's article that war is a racket. Yes, war is a racket, and I do believe that. But I do not begrudge the people who have served and given their lives for this country, and I think it is a shameful disgrace the way we treat our veterans. Our veteran hospitals are a disgrace, and if you really have a heart and you really believe what you're saying, I suggest that you go and visit some of these people who have lost limbs and lost parts of their lives, and of course are committing suicide in droves because of the horror they've been put through. So I don't have anything against the military men, but the monsters that are sending them for their money, I have a lot against those people. So we'll leave that there. Last comment, you're like a broken record on certain things. How about a video on wasted money on a bloated military? How about a video on wasted subsidies for big oil and agro? How about a video on foreign aid? The list can go on and on. You need to diversify your SOA boxes. It's not all little government employees' fault. We have a giant federal budget deficit. Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't blame government employees for this scam that we're facing. You've made a number, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4 DUGY. So the first point, wasted money on a bloated military. Well, the first thing you need to realize is that it's not wasted money, and it's not really bloated. If you go to my video that I've done called Petrodollar Seigniorage, you'll see that I explain how, and you can also go to a office series, not an office series, but a cartoon that I've done on the petrodollar, where you have Jefferson talking to Lincoln, explaining the petrodollar and how the empire of the United States is supported by a petrodollar and the military that enforces that. So I have covered that issue, and that criticism is really not fair. How about a video on wasted subsidies for big oil and agro? Now, I completely oppose subsidies for industries. There's no reason to subsidize an industry. There is a scant reason, and if you remember the video I did on the butter shortage in Norway, a lot of people explained that there's a reason why the government of Norway needs to subsidize the butter industry and the milk and all that stuff. Now, I will agree with you that it's not in a country's interest to gut all industries just in case. That's a lot like you stocking your shelves with some survival food, keeping batteries and stuff like that. You don't know what the future holds. So it's really not in a country's interest to gut any particular industry that could serve them in an emergency. Okay? So I'm not in favor of gutting industries, but I am definitely opposed to subsidies that make these industries, which should be competitive, total dependence on big government. So I hope that distinction is clear. I'm not in favor of wiping out whole industries, but I'm also not in favor of subsidizing them and making them state reliant industries. How about a video on foreign aid? Well, I don't need to do a video on foreign aid. I can explain to you right now. I'm against it. Stop it all. End it all now. I think probably Ron Paul would agree that let's make it zero. Let's start now. How about zero foreign aid for every country, period. Done. Okay, end of story. The list can go on and on and on. You need to diversify your soapbox. It's not a little government employee's fault that we have a giant federal budget deficit. Yes, that's true. Okay, so last point. No, it's not their fault. But ultimately, you're responsible for your choices. And one of the choices you made was to go to work for a corrupt or bankrupt organization. And you are responsible to do due diligence for your employer. And if your employer is the municipal or county or state or federal government, and they are running corrupt finances and they are running a bankrupt book and they're stealing the money, then yes, you are responsible to do your due diligence about your employer. And guess what? They stole all your money. So those are the viewer comments, and I welcome more comments. And the last thing I'm going to do is the blog roll. So we need to go to my channel on that, and that is loading. And the top story I have for the blog roll is Sprott's call for silver producers to hold back metal strikes court. So I've covered Sprott and his latest call. Now, if you remember my video I did about the cartel that I proposed, it's a similar idea. You have to remember that Sprott is calling for them to keep their cash in physical silver. So it's a little bit different. I'm calling for them to withhold all silver from the market. Sprott is calling for them to take what is normally held in cash, the difference they make, the profits they make, and just hold it in silver. So great story. Next is an interview with Mark Faber, and he says in that interview, and this is a quote, "I am convinced the whole derivatives market will cease to exist and go to zero." So I couldn't agree more. I think he is one of the few that is allowed. I don't really know why, but Mark Faber is Faber, whatever his pronunciation is. He's one of the few people who is allowed to speak the truth on the mainstream media. I don't know why that is. Jimmy Rogers is another one, but that's a fascinating watch. So watch that. Bix Weir has put out an article on the CFTC, and he actually caught in the act one of the people who is involved, and this is a ongoing story, so this is breaking. You're going to have to follow this to see where it goes, but the summary is that a person from JP Morgan, this Elaine so-and-so, was involved in creating the regulations of the Frank-Dodd Act and actually ended up being a violator of the very regulations she created. So that's that story. There's a Patriot Radio News Hour. Now, Lame Cherry, and I haven't covered this so far. Lame Cherry is, well, I can't comment, but you have to read Lame Cherry. Anyway, so this is The Sophisticates, and it's about the planners of economies and the people from cities and comparing them from rural people. And it shows you in a pretty stark way, and it quotes from Davy Crockett, who is in this picture here, who explains how once you begin stealing from one person and giving it to another, there's no end. So that's an excellent article. And welcome to the third world. This is from the dollar collapse, and that's great too. And there's my silver update. So that's the blog roll. And the major story of the day is that on the silver chart, it appears that we have not formed a volume bottom such as here and this top sell and here on this downdraft. So it looks like we're going to lower prices. We may test that 22. We may look at that semi-Fibonacci series that I mentioned yesterday and find the bottom of this next move, which may be around 22 if we go to where all the lines converge. And if we do, I would love to hear from you if you can find physical silver at 22. And we'll talk to you next time.